Fewer outages, better streams. We're going to talk about AI. I'm Simon Ouderkirk. I'm VP Product at Hydrolix, here with Jonathan Mercereau. Can you do a quick intro for us?
Jonathan Mercereau. I've worked in and around the CDN world for about 15, 20 years, starting at Comcast, Time Warner, onto Netflix, and then a lot of other stuff in between.
Of course.
Yeah.
And my resume, not as illustrious, but yeah, I come to Hydrolix by way of Disney, which is like a mouse company, where we dealt a lot with CDN stuff. And I'm super stoked to talk to you today.
Yeah.
Jonathan has done some amazing things in this space, and we're only going to touch the tip of the iceberg, but it's going to be great, I assure you. So let's start at the beginning.
Yep. Okay,
CDN delivery, what is it? Why do we have to take it seriously?
CDN, why you have to take it seriously, I'm just going to start there. If you're in here, I'm assuming you already know what CDN is, so I'm not going to go into detail about that, but I will say it's something you have to take incredibly seriously, whether you're a streaming provider or an enterprise. It's the last thing your customers see, and the one thing that they never blame when there's a problem, right? So it's really, really important to be on top of stuff like CDN, monitoring, alerting, that kind of stuff.
Just so. I mean, it's a classic last mile business problem, right? Ultimately, that is the interface by which your customers are achieving the value that your firm is trying to provide them. And if you don't take it seriously, everything before that just goes up in smoke.
Exactly.
Now, when we think about CDN delivery and this part of like that last mile delivery, like historically, you've been in this game for a long time.
Yep.
Like, what has been hard about that? Like, what are the trade-offs that you've had to make?
Yeah, so by show of hands, just so I can make this useful for everybody here, is everybody in like the ops space? Mostly ops, kind of ops? Okay, cool. How many of you have been doing it for at least 10 years? Okay. How many of you are not satisfied with the APIs that you're getting for reporting? No, all the same hands, cool. So the challenge is that if the CDN is the last thing that your customers see, it's an extension of you, right? It's an extension of your company. And so it's really, really important to make sure that you're not solely depending on real user to tell you what is going on. It's important for you to understand what's happening in that last mile. And without good eyes on whatever the problem is, you're not going to solve it. You're going to be dead in the water. And going back to like things like reporting APIs, how many years has it been that the reporting APIs that you get are delayed? Or the log delivery stuff? It's only been within the last couple of years that all of the CDNs now have real-time log delivery. And so, you know, it's really, really important to start consuming that as quickly as you can and using it to your advantage.
And I mean, you can imagine a 1-minute delay, a 5-minute delay to observability.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like very long right now. Right, I mean, up here, think about a 30-minute call,
Yeah.
talk, like it seems like a long time. But if you're streaming the Super Bowl, if you're streaming the World Cup, that's millions of customers having a degraded experience or possibly not able to access your content at all, right? Like seconds count, and your ability to understand that something's going wrong, where it's going wrong, and then quickly remedy it, seconds can make a huge, huge difference, especially in this world where every streamer is moving toward live content.
Well, and the other thing is, if it's not streaming, maybe it's, you know, a shopping cart or something like that. How many minutes of downtime does that dollar amount turn into, right? Is, you know, it's a big deal. You have to make sure that you're able to act on whatever's happening in the moment, not waiting 15 minutes and then eventually coming to figure out what it is, you know?
Well, and the worst case scenario, right, is when your platform doesn't actually tell you at all, right? You get a call from a customer, you read it on Twitter, X, I guess, now, right? Like that is, of course, the absolute worst case scenario, because then how many customers have not reached out, right? Like how much of this has just been invisible to you altogether?
Exactly.
Worst case scenario. So when we think about, all right, we are, in more recent memory, we've achieved real-time or near real-time log delivery.
Yes.
Even that has come with so many trade-offs.
Yeah.
How long do we keep these logs? Who can look at these logs? Do we want to sample these logs? Like, how much signal is really in it for us? Like, what has that been like for you? How have you seen that development over time?
Well, I need everything. If I'm going to collect the logs, I collect the logs and I like to hang on to them as long as I can. It's important to have it for trending data, to be able to look at forecasting and all of those sorts of things. It's very, very important to have logs, or at least have some information that you've extrapolated from those logs over a period of time.
That's right. That's exactly right. And when we think about, so we're sort of telling a story here, right? Like, okay, at first it was kind of slow delivery, not always in full fidelity, and nowadays we have access to the logs, but there's kind of a trade-off is like how much you keep or how long you keep it. But now as we move into current day and into the near future, we've got this idea of like the agentic toolkit.
Yes.
Like how has that changed your workflow?
Oh, well, it's night and day difference being able to not only access the logs, but being able to use natural language to express what it is that is going on and get a solid answer. It's amazing. It takes getting paged, you know, at 3 o'clock in the morning from rubbing your eyes and saying, what's going on, to, oh, I already have a summary, you know.
So let's dive into that. Like, what does that look like? Like, so in days past, not that past, and probably some folks present, right? You're talking about an interface, you're talking about SQL queries, whereas the future and your present, like how do you build that? Where does that come from?
So pitch for NVIDIA, Nemo Agent Toolkit is one of the things that I'm using and that everybody should be using for building your agentic workflows and building any sort of agents that are going to act on your behalf or interact with your customers. Yeah.
And that's Nemo, N-E-M-O?
Nemo, N-E-M-O, yep. Okay. Yeah, really cool. But, you know, these tools are only as good as the information that you feed them, the information that you give them access to, the tools that you give them access to, and the prompts that you give them. So, for instance, is everybody here familiar with some of the AI terminology? Show of hands, yes? Okay, cool, I'm not going to talk about it. It's really, really important that you're constantly honing the skills that you're putting into your agents. It's really important that you're constantly teaching the agent how to use the tools and providing some sort of confirmation that the tool is doing what you expect it to do. Without that, you know, it's no better than hiring a new coworker and then never giving them access to anything and never training them on what the systems do or how they work.
It's really interesting. It's kind of like learning CPR or posting on LinkedIn. Right. If you wait until you need it, you've waited too long. Right.
And so, you know, one of the challenges that I think a lot of people have, and a lot of people that push, when they push back on AI, is, you know, the complaints I hear are it's hallucinating, it's giving me wrong answers, it's, you know, it's doing things that I don't want it to do or that I don't expect it to do. But the truth can be said for any coworker, if you're not giving them tools and training, right? So how much time you spend on honing your agentic workflows will pay off in dividends.
And when you say honing, what does that look like for you? That is like a set of like skills, that's a set of like MCP connectors, like walk me through your toolbox.
MCP connectors, so all of the agents that I build have some sort of MCP. Everyone familiar with MCP? Cool. So all of the stuff that I work with has some sort of MCP connector or MCP server that's been built and provided by the different vendors. And for the stuff that doesn't, I just build it myself. Because it's fairly easy to do with a robust enough API. See, some of the other stuff that I do. I'm constant, so just like I would with any coworker, because I kind of treat my agents like they're coworkers. I give them everything that they need to be successful, and I'm constantly giving them tests. For instance, if I ask a question, what is this? What is this?
Sorry?
Oh, let me give you context, right? It's important.
Thank you.
What is this?
Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. So this is a pen. It's a very nice pen. Looks like it's either gold or supposed to look like gold. It's got a nice click. I use it to write with, or you use it to write with.
I use it to write with. And can you write with it?
Yeah, so I know to click it. That's context as well. Yes, I can. It's blue.
It's blue. There you go.
The ink is blue.
Now you have all the information that you need to know about this tool, right? But if I just ask the question, what is this? You don't know what I'm talking about, right? We as humans have the ability to, we have the benefit of all of our surroundings, you know, feel, touch, sight, smell, you know, hearing, right? All of that gives us context clues, and it's really important that you give your agentic workflows those same sort of context clues to be able to produce what you need out of them.
Yeah, I really like the new employee onboarding metaphor for setting up an agentic workflow for success, because I think anyone who's ever onboarded a new colleague has had the experience of suddenly having to look at everything you do from a new person's eyes, right? It's like, oh, right, how do I get something to production? Like, what actually is the process here? And AI, especially an agentic workflow in a technical platform, really requires you to lay that out really explicitly in a way that maybe you've sort of let become wishy-washy.
Yeah, you know, as humans, what we do is we rely a lot on our context clues to be able to answer questions that are being asked of us. And we need to think about our agents in the same way, right? If our agents don't have that context, they're not going to be able to answer what you're asking. There was a thought that I had that I just lost.
It's all good. So I'd also imagine like this idea of context probably also plays into this broader sort of on-call story, which is if your AI agents are able to observe this data that we've described, there's of course a lot of trade-offs around log management, storage, like the longer that you're able to retain that information and the higher fidelity you're able to retain that information, the more context you're offering that agent, right? Like something that if you only have a 7-day look back, right, if you throw your logs away after 7 days, any kind of monthly or seasonal occurrence might be flagged as an anomaly, right, and might be pulling you out of bed in the middle of the night.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, when you think about this space and you think about CDN operators, like, are there any other opportunities that you would see from like the application of agentic workflows?
Oh,
like,
I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
I have a lot of really, really cool thoughts. You've seen some of the work that I've done.
Of course.
I can't talk about a lot of it, it's proprietary, sorry. But I can talk about the things that are possible with agentic workflows in this day and age. And it's scary how fast these things are able to be produced. You know, well, I'm not supposed to, but I'm going to say, I can go from having an MCP server and an agent to having that agent answer really complex questions in a matter of a day, maybe two, with the right amount of training. And when I say training, I'm talking about having interactive sessions with the agents that you're working with, giving them confirmation that what they're doing is exactly what it needs to be doing, giving your agent additional tools, so access to different MCP servers, and explaining to it what those MCP servers are. So if you think about a world where you have a metrics MCP server that escalates some issue to whoever's on call, imagine a world where instead of being paged at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can stay in bed for this one. Because what can happen is using the event triggers that are fired off from your metrics can then trigger an agentic workflow to make decisions on whether or not you get paged, to make decisions on whether or not this is a common occurrence, to analyze whether or not you need to be paged, or maybe do some sort of investigation prior to you being paged in the first place. And these are all things that are very, very possible today, and employed in certain ways.
I do wonder, I think all of us have had experiences of asking Claude a question, asking ChatGPT a question, and getting like the most confidently incorrect answer back.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's a pretty common experience at this point.
Everybody, Yeah? Has everybody had an email from a coworker where it looks like it was written by AI? Yeah, okay. Yep.
And I think there is this, especially in a professional setting, there's a certain amount of uncertainty or a certain amount of distrust in what feels like a pure AI output.
Yep.
And I do wonder, like, how would you respond if a colleague responded to an on-call request as Claude says it's fine, I'm going back to bed?
I'll put it back to you in a question. You have an intern that you've hired for the summer. Are you going to put them on call?
Well, product doesn't go on call. But no, probably not. I would imagine no.
Yeah. So, you know, before you can implicitly, you're not going to implicitly trust that the AI is going to give you the result that you're looking for, or you shouldn't, at least, right? You need to change your mindset in certain ways. You know, the way that we interact with each other, the way that we talk to each other, again, going back to context, we're able to communicate without having to put a ton of information in the prompt that we're giving. So when I ask you, what is this, and I don't give you any additional context, what happens is, you know, the agentic AI is built in such a way to please you, to give you exactly what you asked for. And the reason it's so confident in giving its answer back is because you didn't give it enough context, and you haven't interacted with it enough, right? And so, you know, before I would give my agent the authority to decide whether or not I get paged at 3 o'clock in the morning, I want to validate and put it through its paces.
Right.
You know, and just like I do with any other colleague that I work with, I'm going to train them up. I'm going to, you all will probably do this too. You're going to train your new colleague. You're going to give them access to the tools that they need access to. You're going to tell them how different things work. And then you're going to trust that a little bit of their history and the reason that you hired them is because they bring a lot of additional skills to the table, right? And so it's not, I wouldn't put an agent in, I wouldn't give an agent that level of authority until I've actually put it through its paces and validated that what it's doing is what I expect it to do. Yeah,
that makes total sense. And I like the intern metaphor. We're really getting into kind of like a new employee kind of onboarding story here. Yeah, I totally get that, right? And it's not a 0 to 1, right? Like you're not going to install a Claude skill and everything is going to change overnight. It's a process of iteration, kind of gaining confidence, keeping human in the loop, and then at some point you give it the agency to do what you want it to do. Yeah. We've kind of talked a lot about the like really positive, like exciting parts of implementing agentic workflows in these like business critical, like customer value spaces. But there've got to be challenges too, right? We're talking about moving really quickly. We're talking about handing responsibility and agency to literal like computers. Like, what are the challenges? What are the new challenges or risks in this landscape?
Some of the new challenges are, well, security is, you know, top of mind. It should be top of mind for everybody, right? So, you know, you, as much as I want to tell everybody, you know, go out and start using all of these tools right now today, and you should, do it with a security mindset in place first. Don't, you know, make sure that whatever agentic workflows you're going to employ have security reviews done on them. Because there's a potential for sensitive data being leaked out into the ether. You don't want that. Exactly, and it happens very fast. Some of the other challenges. Again, we're humans. So if we start feeling like our agents are human, we're going to talk to them like they're human. And so I tend to be pretty wordy. And so, you know, it's not uncommon for my prompts to be, and I'm talking about just regular day-to-day interactive prompts, to be like 4 or 5 sentences to convey what is this, right? And so if you feel like, oh, I'm being too wordy, it's, you know, it's too much, it's not too much. The agents need it to be able to answer your questions.
So we're talking a lot in the abstract, kind of at the strategic level. I wonder, tell me like a case study. Like tell me a story about like what does this look like for an operator? Like how does this workflow once context is supplied, once the look back window is in place? Like what does execution look like? Like paint me a picture.
Picture. I'll frame it like this. All right. For the folks in the audience, how many of you guys are on call ever? Or take a page? All right, there you go, cool. And hopefully you're on some sort of rotation so you get some rest, right? So the challenge, what happens is when you're not on call, how many of you guys have been called even when you're not on call? A few? Several? Why? Because you're the subject matter expert, right? You have access to the things that everybody needs access to, or you have the skill set that everybody needs. Well, imagine you're not on call, and it's a Thursday night. Your beverage of choice, right? You've had a couple. It's 9 p.m. It's fine. You're not on call. It's not that important. You get paged anyways, right? Because somebody needs something. And the challenges there are, for instance, I have to speak hypothetically here.
Of course. Fiction.
Yeah. So when you get called, when you're not supposed to be called, and you're not in the right frame of mind to even take that call, imagine being able to have an agent troubleshoot and investigate exactly what's going on when 20 people on this conference bridge have been analyzing data for hours and are unable to figure it out. But you, from picking up the phone to implementing a solution, only took you 9 minutes, right? And it's all because of the tool sets that you're able to employ.
Right.
And then you take that and you turn that into something that means that you don't have to get paged anymore. Transpose yourself into the agent.
That's pretty remarkable. I mean, that would be a pretty outstanding outcome for sure.
Yeah.
I know one of the places that you've been thinking about and sort of doing some work in is the idea of like, okay, how do we make sure that our logs that we capture to high fidelity, that we keep for a long time, like how do we make sure that those translate to consistent like business metrics on all different surfaces within the firm, right? Like creating a single source of truth. Do you want to touch on that?
I don't necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, not really. No.
Okay, all good.
Sorry.
It's all good. And I wonder, like, how have you come to like your current state of maturity when you think about like the agentic workflow? Like if someone's just starting on this journey and they find what you're describing like kind of aspirational, like what does that look like? Like how do you learn about that? How do you develop something like that of your own?
Well, if you're not using, some sort of agent at work right now, you should, so that you can get comfortable with the tool. Obviously, read up. But what's really amazing are things like, for instance, I personally use Claude Code. And there are a lot of things that you can start to do with Claude Code, the Nemo Agent Toolkit, and you get an API key from build.nvidia.com and start using it for free if you wanted to. But Claude Code does a really, really good job if you give it the ability to do it, to go out and analyze and build some scaffolding for you up front to start building a lot of these really interesting and cool tools that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it really does feel like once you've got that in place, once you've got the Nemo Agent Toolkit in place, you've got your Claude installed, often just picking a problem, right? Like here's a problem that I have, like and go figure it out.
Yes.
Right, just kind of address it and really learn by doing in some ways.
Exactly. And then what you can start to do after you've had a really, really good and informative session with Claude, or your agent of choice, you can take everything that you've done in that session and then turn it into a skill so that becomes something that your agent does repeatedly. And when I talk about agents, I'm saying some of them can be Claude, some of them can be these agentic workflows. There's a lot of different stuff. But ultimately, it's about giving your agentic AI the skill sets to make it successful.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Do you want to take some questions
Yeah.
before we head to lunch? Sure. So we have some time for questions. Sir?
Thank you so much for the information. You mentioned about this, I think everybody has experience with agents. But,
Yes.
as you said, like intern example was great, and you need to train, that's great. But when do you know the agent is ready to give the real work and trust?
So the question is, the intern metaphor is solid, but ultimately, like, how do you know it's done? How do you know that an agent is at a place where they're ready for the big leagues, right? They're ready to be promoted to full employee.
How do you know that the intern can be promoted to a full-time employee? How do you know that the intern can be promoted from a junior engineer to a senior engineer? It's really up to the testing that you put in front of your agent and analyzing what it returns and ensuring that every time you formulate that prompt, even if you alter it slightly, that it's still producing the exact same thing that you're expecting, right? It's at that point that you can start to feel really comfortable to give an agent the agency to go execute on your behalf.
But there will be another problem, maybe a skills already refined.
Yes.
Then there is a model update, new version. The output will change with that. So you need to analyze iterational post-deployment version upgraded for the model.
Yes.
So the question is, it's wonderful, you've set up your workflow, you've set up all of these highly defined skills. What happens when the underlying technology is updated, upgraded, there's sort of architectural shifts? Is that?
Yeah, so just like you do with any code base, right? You have regression testing and unit testing and stuff like that. So, every time a new version of an API comes out, you have to go out and do updating and things like that, and then go run it back through some sort of regression to ensure that that API is still doing what you expect it to do. Very much in the same way as the models change.
Great.
Does that answer your question? Sort of? Okay.
Maybe time for one more. Sir?
Great. So I understand that you talked mostly about AI and promoting the idea of usage of the AI, but you mentioned multiple times logs, scrape logs, get logs to the AI. But to the best of my knowledge, nobody is really scraping logs for monitoring these days. Everything is like Prometheus metrics, right? Do you think agents actually need logs to be more effective, or Prometheus metrics will be just as much same way fine as logs?
Sure, good question. So the question was, are logs really the necessary atomic unit of meaning for the kind of agentic workflows we're talking about? Am I sort of expressing it right? Yeah, what do you think about that?
I love metrics, and I love the idea of metrics providing a signal to the noise that you would otherwise find in logs. The challenge is that you're limited by the cardinality that you can put into metrics, right? So you're never going to get the granularity from a metric that you'll be able to get from a log. And especially when we're talking about CDN, especially when we're talking about global streaming, global content delivery, there are micro outages all the time, all over the world, that won't even flag in a metric if your metric doesn't have that level of granularity, right? So how do you go through and investigate issues when they come up if you don't have that deeper granularity?
I'd also say, those of you who don't know, I majored in philosophy at SUNY Binghamton, so that's going to come out in this answer. When we think about metrics, when we think about any kind of measurement, that's necessarily a translation or a reduction of complexity on the underlying information, right? And it's very hard to predict what you're going to want to know in the future.
Yeah.
And often, every translation comes with it context, understanding, often business meaning, which once that's applied to that measurement, sort of takes you away from that more precise log level information. So until we're perfect at predicting what we're going to want to know in the future, I think having access to that most atomic unit is going to be key. especially as we get more platforms, as we get more like technological sophistication, which allows us to review and understand that massive amount of log data with like more value for ourselves and our customers.
And I know that we're at time. I have one more thing.
Please.
Just one more.
Of course.
So you mentioned Prometheus specifically. So one of the things that I actually have open sourced and made public is an adapter that allows you to take the Hydrolix data and immediately convert it into a metric on a 15-minute or 15-second polling interval, so that you have the most up-to-date information based on the logs that are being processed through an ETL pipeline. And so I've open sourced that. You can find it. It's on GitHub. It's Hydrolix Metrics Go or something like that. In there, I also have a pyramid that I like to refer to. It's the DIKW pyramid. It's data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And data is really the underlying logs. To take that data and turn it into information, which are your metrics, you need to have some sort of adapter to get you there. And so I've built that and open sourced it.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
We won't keep you from lunch any longer. We'll be in the hallway and at the Hydrolix booth in the West Hall, and you can always find us on LinkedIn and elsewhere as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, gentlemen.